Hey everyone, it's Lena Banks. Welcome back to Financial Therapy for the Week. I have a great guest with me again today, Kalina.
Hi there.
Good to see you again. So today we're going to talk a little bit about current events because, this is a financial therapy podcast, and my whole goal for this is to get people talking about finances in a new and empowering way, and a real way. And I've just been watching kind of what's been going on for the last several months, actually, since the podcast launched, and it's atrocious. There's a lot of financial unrest, just unrest in general, and recently the government shut down, so that's what we're here to talk about today, because I just want to talk to a real person about all of the crazy. So I found this story, and basically I think it's just kind of a signal for what is actually going on in America right now with just regular people. So a near record number of cars, and this is from Newsweek, so you can look it up. A near record number of cars are being repossessed as Americans continue to fall behind on their auto loans amid mounting financial strain. This is kind of across all aspects, I think, of life. It's not just cars, it's rent, it's consumables, everything is just more expensive. Interest rates are still very high, so people have a lot of debt. And so it's not a surprise necessarily, but it is kind of alarming to hear this. So according to data from the Recovery Database Network, analyzed by CUR Repossession, whatever those agencies are, 2025 has seen over 7.5 million repossession assignments given to their agencies to recover a vehicle on behalf of a lender. So based on historic trends, this figure is expected to reach a record 10.5 million by the end of the year. So why this matters? Why does it matter that so many people are getting their cars repossessed? Well, first of all, if you have an auto loan, that is a negative impact on your credit report immediately. Makes it harder to get another car or another anything that you're needing to get. But we were talking earlier, what happens when your car is gone? So it's not just that you lose your car, it's the start of really a horrible spiral. So talk a little bit about that, because you mentioned on another episode riding the bus. Mm-hmm. I'm curious what the public transportation system in Austin is looking like right now.
It has been a while since I've used it because my 17-year-old car is doing okay. But I will say that it is genuinely a sign of the situation happening right now in America that is really feels out of people's control.
Yeah.
Because with a government shutdown, for example, a lot of people who work for the government have been furloughed and are not getting paid. Or even before the shutdown, there were mass layoffs of federal workers.
And that trickles to the private sector because they're concerned. And, a lot of private industries serve federal agencies or state agencies, so that eliminates their opportunity for any level of work or growth. It's a crazy trickle-down, horrific effect.
Absolutely.
And this is kind of a lagging indicator, I think, which is another problem, right? Because if we're seeing that this is growing to such a record degree, what's underneath the surface that we're not really seeing like the fundamental issues that are happening to cause this, because it's crazy. So it's projected that over 3 million cars could be repossessed in 2025, a level only reached in 2009 during the Great Recession. So that feels like what we're talking about here. We are talking about driving, and that was not a pun intended. We're talking about like pushing ourselves forward into disaster, chaos. And the other problem is that there are a lot of consumer protections that have been removed from the conversation. So people getting a new vehicle, when something like this happens to you, you could potentially figure out some sort of way to purchase another vehicle or something like that. You know, depending on the structure of your previous loan, it might have been predatory and not something that you actually could pay. So maybe you're willing to take the hit and have something happen on your credit report. Maybe you have other resources, other people that you can rely on to co-sign a loan or something like that. My point is, even getting a replacement right now is incredibly difficult. Cost-wise, price-wise, there's nobody watching the store as far as gouging, as far as making sure interest rates are commensurate with what someone should be paying. And auto loans, I've seen auto loans last for like 10 years now, which is like, that's insane. The usefulness of the car, and sometimes the car itself, doesn't last that long. And depending on the type of car and how diligent the owner is, you could be paying on a loan for a car that you haven't had for years, which is obviously not the best financial decision. So it feels very much like, honestly, like a setup.
It is. It definitely. So I've been hearing for many years, probably not the most, I'm not going to say it in the most accurate way, but many people are one paycheck away from just being in dire straits. Right? So this is the one paycheck.
Yes.
Right? It happened. It has been happening in the months of this year.
Right.
And these are people who are, like, everyone's out here trying to do their best.
Right.
Like, these are people who have made good financial decisions, or who've been stable and who are
used to having a car loan and not necessarily thinking much about having a car loan.
Yeah.
Because they've had a job, because they've had a stable understanding of their financial life. Yeah.
So what it comes down to, and I dislike this word because we shouldn't have to even rely on it so much, but it comes down to resilience, being able to make it through the tough time and bounce back. Yeah. And you said it earlier, some people who, if you have community, if you have family or people who can help you through the tough time, that's the best situation.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But there's so many people who are pretty much on their own and just trying to figure it out.
Right.
And that's when you gotta hustle, you gotta, take the bus and like ride a bike or find ways to do what you need to do to take care of yourself, take care of your kids if you have kids. It's really, it really is about resilience, and I just hate that we have to rely so much on that.
Right. It shouldn't be the only thing. I think it goes back to that conversation about, charitable giving. Yes, absolutely. And I think people should rely on charitable agencies. Your work is so important, but that shouldn't be the only place that you can go for that sort of support and assistance and help. I really think that this becomes a more political conversation than it maybe needs to be, because I think this is the point where everybody needs to take a breath and understand that social services and paying for social services and having social services available through the government, having consumer protections through the government, having them care about public safety, access to healthcare, access to financial knowledge and information in particular, so that they can make the best decisions, so that you're not signing an auto loan for 10 years at 8% interest or some craziness. You've got to get to a point where we understand what government is here to do. And I think that this is the time where it's not about a handout, because like you said, you've got to be resilient and you've got to figure out how to focus on these things yourself. But for instance, the government shutdown is the crux of the issue at this point is subsidies for health insurance. And so I feel like we should have those so that people can get some health insurance and have a hope of accessing a doctor for good care. So, I mean, we're just in a really interesting time. And yeah, I agree. I think people have got to figure out how to get through with whatever resources they can, knowing that there is another side. I think there is something on the other side of this.
Absolutely.
And maybe that's part of the lesson we all need to learn, is that we need to stick together a little bit. We're not alone. I was telling you before the show, like, one of my craziest moments in life was almost getting evicted from my apartment. This was like early in my life, adult life, of course. But I it was not in my nature or thought process to ask my parents at that point for help, or any others in my family. And thinking about that now, I'm like, God, that was so crazy, because if I would have asked them, they would have been like, oh my God, you're about to get evicted? Of course, we're going to help you. But I thought that I was alone. And I want people to know that if this is happening to you, if you're one of these people who they're knocking on your door, or they're not knocking on the door and they're just like taking your car, because I think that's how it works, right? Like they just come and get it. You are not alone. You are obviously part of a growing number of Americans who are really struggling. And I think, like you were saying, one paycheck away, many people are in that same boat. So,
yes. And you said earlier about charity and how, like, nonprofits and community organizations help people through these challenging times, and it is true. I will say, though, just like the government shutdown and changes in administrative direction has affected businesses, it has also affected nonprofits, and some nonprofits are also, dealing with the fallout of all these changes. And so maybe you might even see the external safety nets are starting to unravel. The government safety nets that you talked about, they are so necessary, and we're watching how they're unraveling and how much it's impacting so many people.
Yeah.
And the nonprofit world is not exempt from that. But the beauty of nonprofits, though, is that they can operate outside of, not necessarily outside of the system in like you still have lots of rules to follow.
Sure.
But you can't operate outside of the system. But I do think for nonprofits to continue to be able to support a community in a particularly tough time,
Yeah.
for those who are still stable and those who are able to, it is extra important to contribute to nonprofit work and to getting community-based, or making sure the community-based organizations that provide that safety net are able to function.
Yes, yes. I totally agree. And, I will echo that. Now's the time, if you are in a space and wondering what you can do, to find an organization and support that organization. And it does take a little more effort, I think, to push your resources to a place that you trust, that you know that it's going to be utilized in a way that you would value and that fits with your integrity. But I think doing that, and like you're saying, making that contribution, upping your contribution, is a good thing to do in this time, because it does feel a little bit like helpless. There is no real place to go or thing to do in order to help. And so that's a great tip, is if you feel like you can and you have the resources, you should find some place to help, and actively do so, because it's needed.
Yeah, absolutely. These are the times when we need to circle up and build community and be in community and support each other, especially if we do not feel supported, and if we feel alone. That's when you need to reach out.
Yes, yes. Well, I think that's a good message to end on. If you're feeling financial hardship, you're feeling alone, don't be afraid to reach out. You're not alone. And there are people who are in your same situation, but also people who are ready and willing to help. And so share your story. This is financial therapy. This is financial therapy. Thank you guys for listening in, and I will be back next week with another episode. Thank you so much, Glenna, for being here. I so appreciate you. I'll be back next week.